Yes, yes. Good afternoon, good afternoon. Sunday afternoon. And the heat of the summer here, man, I tell you.
Let me tell you, the man is
It's
saying,
hotter and hotter every day, Richie.
we catch a practice to go down bottom yard.
And you walk along the sun. You're going to cross up.
Me I tell you why, you act like sometimes you go outside and you feel the water run off of your back. I say, hold on. If you look up here, you see about 2 or 3 sun and
You're
shine.
lucky you have to wait until you go outside. By the time you take a cold shower and you come out of the bathroom, you're sweating and the AC is on 75. I tell you, boy.
It's rough.
But in the meantime, it's Sunday. And if it's Sunday,
Sunday school style.
I have to take the phone out.
It's a Sunday. So, and today we have a huge treat. A man who don't have no internet footprint. I've known. But a man whose footprint in the music in Jamaica is significantly large.
Yeah, let me tell the people how significant this footprint is. It's not even so much as a footprint. You remember back in the days when Mike Tyson used to fight and fight done in the first round.
Yes.
This is the man that had the punch what this man carried when it comes to reggae music.
Huge,
and we're talking about none other than
Stevie Golding.
Stevie Golden. Not Golden, Richard. Golding.
Golding.
Yes. It's existing.
It's not Father Christmas, Stevie Golding.
Yes.
Steve, welcome to Sunday School.
Give thanks for having me. I wondered who you guys were talking about, who you gentlemen were talking about, but we accept it with gratitude.
Well, listen, we it is our pleasure and the pleasure of our listeners to have you as our special guest today. A man who speaks to the music itself, the history of the music. And when we talk about Stephen Golding, as God pointed out, the Mike Tyson analogy is it?
Yeah, man. One punch and you're out.
Slap
wet. As a young youth, I said to them, slap wet. Yeah, man.
No, well, this is one of those shows where and so we want to hear it from his perspective, and so this is your show, Stephen, and again, welcome to Sunday School. So how you do?
I'm giving thanks. I'm good. So we give thanks every day. That's how we do. Just give thanks.
Yeah, when you call his phone, let me tell you so. You almost want to call him like 2 or 3 times a day. Yeah, it's a very uplifting message. So, not surprised that you are a man who is ensconced in giving thanks.
But before we even get into him talking, Richard, let me give the listeners a preempt or a preview into what we're looking at. Who feels it knows it? Rita Marley. Only a Woman, Judy Mowat. Barry Brown with his self-titled album Barry. Peter Tosh, Mama Africa, No Nuclear War. Harambe, Rita Marley. A compilation of the best of Ziggy Marley and the Melody Makers. The time has come. Rita Marley, We Must Carry On. Red Fox, Tony Rebel, Sophia George, Israel Vibration. And brethren, the list just continues. Chevelle Franklin, Don Carlos, Gregory Isaacs, Max Romeo, Dennis Brown, Uri, and Blondie. That big group that they did. The tie inside the Paragon cover. Yeah, man. Dwight Pinkney. Brethren, them the kind of a giant we look for.
Why me get goosebumps to write it as you when you call. Dwight Pinkney have a double album set, right? That memories by the Scores and more, yeah. And then Stephen also takes his time to provide tutelage for youngsters who are looking to learn to play the instrument. But let's give a little taste from the back, go way back, as far back as you can go, God.
I forgot to tell me, brethren, because all of the albums them show them, I tell me the specific music. Because when you look at these albums, they have more than one rhythm guitarist.
Right.
Even, listen, them are not only play guitar, You want to tell you about me?
No, don't pray.
He only play guitar and play hand drum. Is my composer, arranger, him mix, him sing too, and percussion.
Oh, so like we need about a month worth of conversation.
Probably about 3 shows after with it.
Cover this thing. Well, let's take it.
But you know what, Richie, I can actually dare to just pull a song and feel say him is a part of that song. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play Mama Africa song off of Peter Tosh's Mama Africa album. That's one of my favorite songs that Peter Tosh does, apart from Reggae My Lightest. So did you or did you not play that song? Because venture to play this title song.
I'm really glad you chose that album. Because some of those other albums that you're calling, obviously People's Session, and I don't know how the rhythms were used, but not being a very prolific studio person, I mean, I guess it is good to know that the work shows up, in 1 or 2 places. Yeah, I did play on the Mama Africa album. I played rhythm guitar and all the tracks, except the track where he does the solo piano, keyboards, obviously. But that was a special experience, working on that album. The rhythm tracks were done down at Dynamics. Yeah.
1982-83.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here's what I'd love us to do. Because I think we may need to do more than just one sitting with Stephen. So I want to go to the beginning. You grew up where, Stephen? Where in Jamaica?
But we get it straight, Steve, not Stephen, because there's another.
Yeah, there's a Stephen Golding out there. You're right.
Yes,
Steve Golding.
And since certain political activities, every Stephen does Stephen now, but we won't get into that.
You are so right. Yes. So Steve,
grew up. Mm-hmm.
Where did you hail from in Jamaica?
Underneath the clocks, born in Kingston, born at East Street and Charles Street, grew up at Avon Park Crescent. Wow. Yeah, and I guess it would be safe, moved to Avon Park Crescent when I was 4 years old. And it would be safe to say that is where the music started, because my dad had an old Hawaiian guitar on top of his wardrobe, and when him not there, we pulled down guitar, don't know where, because the strings were set for a slide guitar. We never know anything about that. And I'm wondering why I can't get anything out of this guitar. And then he carried down to Music Mart. So when the guys down at Music Mart got up off the floor, them said, "No man, this guitar not supposed to play with your hand." So they took out the little nut that made it into a slide guitar and lowered the string. So that was my first guitar. Right. My dad didn't play guitar. He messed around with the piano a little bit, but as you know, printing was his forte. But he did have that guitar, and that became my first guitar. So from that time, and then now doing music with Noel Foster Davis, and just liking the instrument and just deciding to stay with it literally all my life. That's it. The rhythm of Jamaica is so very special to me that I think a conscious decision was made from day one that is what I would do. So hence the name, Rhythm Guitarist.
You talk about the rhythm of Jamaica and even before we think, so the guitar essentially became your only instrument, was that it? Or did you play any other instrument?
Like every youngster, you mess around with percussions. I really consider myself a percussionist, but having 2 sons, one being a master drummer and one being a master at the trap set, I sometimes hesitate to mention that, but I learn from them anyway. They're good people. Mm-hmm. But I love percussions, really, just generally speaking. In fact, I used to, back in the day when Fab Five used to do Carolina, I had the privilege. Larry McDonough used to walk around with a half a bongo. Mm-hmm. When I told him of my love he gave me that. So that was my first percussion instrument. The privilege of working with the NDTC, you know. We're skipping all over the place, but we can get the chronology.
No, man, go on. You.
Working with the NDTC.
Yes.
And again, as I said, having this love for percussions. So I actually had formal lessons on the conga from Marjorie Wiley.
I was just about to ask.
You know, yeah, no. I mean, when I say formal lessons, I mean formal. And that association with Marjorie was so special because at the time she was the head of the folk music research department at the School of Music, still at Hope Road, having taken over from Olive Lewin, and I had the privilege of working with her for a few years. In fact, the guitar course that I teach was developed because of Marjorie, because she had some teachers from rural areas, teachers who knew music theory, but were from schools that could not afford pianos. And so again, the Music Mart, I believe, afforded them gifts of guitar. So in exchange for refreshing my theory, Marjorie said, teach these ladies how to play the guitar. So that's where my guitar course evolved from, because I remember as a youngster walking home with this guitar from classical training and just not being able to play anything that I was learning. You know, it just didn't resonate.
Mm-hmm.
And so very early in life, I decided, to my mother's chagrin, but later she understood, you know, to not take lessons anymore, just teach myself. So having a formal background in how to read and understand what is on a stage, you know, I took that further myself. And like I say, you know, just got fixated on the rhythm, the rhythm guitar in Jamaican music, period, you know, but in reggae in particular. So that's what I am artistically. But yes, there is a love for percussions. I have had the privilege of playing percussions on a few albums, you know, one of which you didn't mention, or two of which you didn't mention, but that's fine, you know. And so, yes, there's a little history with percussions as well. But the guitar is it. The guitar is it.
Which two albums that we didn't mention?
Well, it's two Harold Butler albums. I don't know the name.
Oh, Butler did it?
Yeah,
Butler did it.
The other one is from the movie that Leonard Little White did. So
was that The Harder They Come, or?
No.
Rockers.
That was
Children of Babylon.
Children of Babylon. I have a couple of songs from the Children of Babylon. As a matter of fact, Pam Hall did a song right there. I'm only woman. Right. Yes.
So whichever was his album before that.
The Butler did it.
Could be, but I don't know. I don't remember the title now. It was done at Dynamics, but I did exclusively percussions and that. But on the other one, I think there are a couple tracks that I did percussion and I did guitar on some of the tracks.
The big song on that one was Crying in Soweto and Let True Love Be with Ernest Wilson.
And the
Butler did it. Yes. And interesting as I said that, a lot of people
songs that have a conga input. You can check the notes just in case I'm wrong. But we have people watching here who will correct me, you know.
Absolutely.
We're not worried about that. But the conga work on one of those early albums. That's me also.
It's interesting you talk about the two people that you mentioned. Marjorie Wiley. I know Marjorie Wiley from my days at KC, where she was a Spanish teacher. And we're talking about early 1970s. It is amazing that this woman was so talented. And, you know, at the time we are youngsters, you know, we our interaction with her was as a Spanish teacher. And, you know, she always tell you, don't forget the tilde on the end, you know.
Yeah.
And then you talk about Harold Butler, another KC product as well, you know, and so that influence is strong. Incidentally, where you went to school? I am just asking the questions for the listeners. I don't want to.
you want to start something here because a lot of my resource persons who I pray are on with us now didn't go to the institution on North Street, so they
Where George's? Where George's?
and I deliberately use the word institution to give them an in, because all the tired jokes that we got. Non-protests.
Well, Steve, the institution I went to is on Woodlawn Road in Mandeville.
Okay.
It's called the Carteret College.
Well, no, but seriously, this is, in retrospect, looking back when we say, there's so much music.
It is monumental.
That came out of Jamaica.
That came out of Kingston.
And out of KC. No, yes. I want to preface the thing. That's how they taught us at the institution. Wasn't it, Steve?
Music was an integral part of everything. I mean,
absolutely.
Like I say, again, funny enough, one of my resource persons is an Aggie person. But, Jackie Bipu, Tyrone Downey, Harold Butler, the Johnson brothers, one of the Keith Jones actually went away on a swimming scholarship, believe it or not. Excellent guitarist, ended up playing bass with Blood, Sweat and Tears, I think. Right, so and I'm sure other schools have a similar cadre of persons, but we are particularly proud because of the impact some of these Fortis persons had on the popular music of Jamaica.
Absolutely. And you haven't even mentioned some of the people behind the
like Mikey Bennett and
Gussie Clark, Mikey Bennett.
Right.
But also you're talking about people like Simeon Stewart, Richardson, the drummer.
There you go.
And we could go on and on.
We're speaking of impact on the music, not just on stage or in the studio,
right.
but in the control room, in the production areas as well. I mean, Dennis Thompson, we could go on. Neville Garrick, we could go on. That whole graphic experience that Bob Marley became, right, as a part of that. That was the brainchild of Neville Garrick, And the irony, the beauty, is that his son is now that for Ziggy. Is now that for Ziggy Marley as well. So there's so much more to our popularity, and our impact on the world in terms of our culture and our music in particular, since this is what we're about this afternoon. But persons just need to get that kind of perspective. And like I say, my resource persons who are on or who will see this at some point, I mean, so much more information that can be had. And we need to be mindful of this, when we're talking about the music. It's not by accident. It's not by chance. It has the impact that it has, because of where it is coming from. It is coming from the heart of a people who understand, how to express that kind of struggle, fight, upliftment. You gentlemen spoke of upliftment earlier. So we need to give the music its props, and I'm just honored to be a part of all of that.
Well, we are honored to have a man like you here, because one of our primary role rather is at chronicling and archiving the stories that contribute to the music. My philosophy, it's a shared philosophy on our little team here, that the music really speaks to who we are as a people.
Exactly.
And if you really want to know what's going on in Jamaica at any point in time, listen to the music. Right?
Talk about listening to the music. Here is a track from the album The Butler did.
Yes, Steve. To the point that I raised.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my brother Winston, is deceased, because he would be the authority on that. Everybody call him Duda. because even as a youngster, he always frequented, right? We are from the corner of East Street and Charles Street. If you go further along Charles Street, you find where the original Wheeler's shop was, Tough Gang, the original Tough Gang.
Tough Gang, right?
Further out to Orange Street, you have Derek Morgan, you have Prince Buster. You go up Orange Street, they have the studio that was Prince Buster's. I think that was the same studio that became Lagos. Again, I say, we have person who can make corrections. But further up was where a lot of people say that the whole thing started, with Leslie Kang and those people. So that is that geographic region. They moved to Avon Park Crescent now, or we moved to Avon Park Crescent now. And if you come off Avon Park Crescent and Lindus Road and go up Elgin Road, you make a right, you're at Studio One. So my wife's dad and Coxon were brethren back in the day. So even as youngsters, before I ever met her, right, he would get these pre-releases because he had a sound system. He would get these pre-releases. He was right at the corner of Golding Road and Lindus Road and play some of these songs. So the whole matter of just being around the music, I don't know any Jamaican, period, but Kingstonian certainly, who was not around some area. The people them from East will tell you about Scatterlights and
right from Rockfort, the whole Rockfort area.
Every community, right, had its own input. One of the ironies about Avon Park, where I grew up, is just down the road, of course, Trenchtown, Arnett Gardens. Almost every person you talk to from that region is them first carry Bob, go to studio, but people just want to be associated.
Yes, identification.
Yeah.
And then they'd say, because just, further out, well, certainly the whole of Central Kingston, Tower Street, Last Street, the whole of that area going on. Because big youth come from around that side. That's where, some of the early sound system. And you continue west to Greenwich Farm, which is another area where the music originated from. And I'm curious as to why nobody saw it fit to capitalize on the historic value.
I don't know that it is true to say that nobody saw it fit. Because the artists that came out of that, for example, out on, since you're in that area now, out on, what is that now, Waltham, out at St. Peter Claver, right, in that general vicinity, that is where Soul Syndicate come from, that's where Santa Davis come from, So it's not that no one has capitalized on it. I mean, people who visit Kingston, people who have done their work on our music and visit Kingston, always visit these areas when they come to Kingston. It is said in a study done in the early 2000s, it is said that every single tourist that comes to Kingston visits the Bob Marley Museum. What we have not done is, like other societies, is to, I don't know what the correct word is to make sure that there is an environment in which the talent from these areas are nurtured. And we have to look at the resurgence of Alpha now, right? I mean, had the privilege of visiting there a couple of months ago, and the whole structure, the way the place has been improved. The facility has been improved, Peter Ashburn in charge of the music there now. And you have persons associated with it. So it's not that we have not capitalized on it, but we have to understand that the culture represents a lot of things, and part of it is struggle against the status quo, So maybe successive regimes just don't see a need to make it, with the use of particular songs in our campaigning, maybe as far as the vision of some, not all, goes, and I don't know what it is called in the United States. The culture, some official organization to deal with matters of culture, something or another of the arts, right? The National Endowment, whatever the name is. But that type of structure, I agree, is not in place in Jamaica. There are institutions.
Essentially, that's what I'm looking. That's in fact that is
that is what you're speaking.
That is what I'm speaking to. The absence of this cultural preservation
and policy, which is directly to affect those things.
Yeah, because the musicians, yes, the artists, they have done their bit. I mean, if you go back to the days of the Charles Street, Orange Street, Prince Buster established his business there, and other producers, music, record producers also established businesses on Orange Street and so on. But and so what that has done is that it has sort of chiseled out a historic space, if you will, which is the story of Jamaica. We agree is embedded in its music, but also from a tourism standpoint and tourism standpoint in a way where it benefits the people who are in these communities. For some reason we have not gone down as far enough down that road. That was the point that I wanted.
I get, and I understand your point, and I understand your point, but I don't know. You see, I don't know enough about Nashville, but I don't suspect there was any governmental input into what Nashville is to country music in the United States. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So we sit and wait on others to do for us, to our own destruction, But again, the level of success that artists, Marley comes readily to mind, Cliff, look at the kind of legacy that Marley has left for his children. You know what I mean? Look at the kind of legacy that Cliff, is leaving, and will leave. So we wait on official dumb to tell us, to validate us, to our own detriment, because if we are in a position to set these structures up for ourselves, why not do so?
And again, as you said, we don't know what the Nashville situation is, but one thing is clear, where the nature of and size of our own economy, and the fact that in a space like here, this is a much bigger social and economic environment where and more importantly, the policy usually follows capital in this kind of environment. That's what happens. Whereas in a space like Jamaica, capital tend to follow policy.
There are endowments and these things that are set in place by humanitarian or altruistic individuals who have contributed to these areas. And we do get that, but at the same time, there are within these cities policy or ordinances which are written to support this kind of thing.
I'm just looking at it that if we
I hear
you.
I hear you, brothers, and I hear what you're saying. But I said earlier, and I will repeat, remember this music, the popularity of our music, the success of our music is born out of struggle. Is born out of protest.
Right.
Is born out of destabilizing the status quo. Now, how do we expect these same policymakers to do? So it is upon us.
What you said is that the oppressor now will gain no money for fight against it.
You said it, sir. You're the host. I'm just a guest here.
You're a skillful, you miss it calling.
Prime Minister.
You miss it calling, Steve, I tell you the truth.
Playing guitar while campaigning.
but let's kick the ball a little bit further down the road. you got into this business. What was the period? The 1960s.
Late 60s, yeah. I mean, actually, it's so funny because having developed a level of aptitude on the instrument for most of my high school career, I didn't play any guitar at all. And then in about 1966, 67, the Upper People movement visited Jamaica. And out of that came Sing Out Jamaica, right? This is about 1966, right? And then 67, Sing Out Jamaica was formed. Now, during that time, I was very much into acoustic music, you know, so Frankie Campbell and myself and a friend of his, one of the Gardens, either Philip or Paul, I think it's Philip Garden, right, had this group that would do a Simon and Garfunkel type of stuff. So Frankie and I were playing guitar.
Hi there. If you enjoyed that clip, go on over to our website at yawdmedia.com where you can watch the entire broadcast at your leisure. And while you're there, why don't you check out our other reggae music features? And before you leave, pick up some of our Jamaican reggae merchandise, and hey, don't forget to tell your friends.